Do not cut your hands on the shattered lives of others. And what I mean by that, let me just start by saying I'm not talking about ignoring people who are in dire need of help and assistance. That's not what I'm talking about, and those are not the people of whom I speak. I'm talking about sometimes our willful ignorance that gets the best of us. And sometimes that can take us to a lot of dark places. We've been given the advice by people that we love, respect, trust, admire, and yet we still go our own way. We've been told about the dangers of alcohol, recreational substance abuse, recreational abuse of our bodies, financial advice. We've been told all of these things, and sometimes we decide we're going to go our own way, and that's okay. But what it means is that you have to learn that lesson yourself. What it means is when somebody decides that they are going to steer towards the rocks instead of open, calm waters, don't take your ship onto the rocks with them, because then at that point you are of no help to them. Now you have two people in a position that they shouldn't be in. So the best that we can do is set anchor and wait for that SOS. And should they need our help, then we can be there for them in a position of strength and understanding and clarity, rather than being in the same turmoil and chaos that they may be themselves. And that's okay. That's okay. I know I've gone through a lot of hard-headed moments where I didn't listen. Or sometimes it wasn't about external. I didn't listen to the voices in my head, my instincts. I decided to look past whatever it was because there was an outcome that I was sure that I could get from it, or that I just wanted more than I needed to listen. And therefore, there are some pieces that need to be picked up. But it wasn't for somebody else to come along and cut their hands on. Our scars are going to be our own, and we've earned them by being in a position to have been cut, whether by others or by ourselves. And sometimes the others are because we put ourselves in front of others. And that scar means that you've healed. That means there's a resilience to you that you need to go through yourself. And that scar will always be not only a story, but more importantly, a reminder of sometimes what we should not do. Now, that can come in a lot of forms. That can come in the form of a repossessed car, a foreclosed home, a jail record, a substance abuse problem, children that weren't planned. It can come in a lot of forms and fashions. And it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but it also means that nobody else should be there to clean up our credit, or see us through court proceedings, or pay for our children, or have to go down the same dark path if we are in addiction, or serve our time should we become incarcerated. And those are just a few examples, but this is what I'm talking about. We have to go through it ourselves. And that's the process. That's how things are supposed to be. That's a natural order. When we are curious enough to ask questions about what life has to offer, then that means we are looking for specific answers. But depending on how we receive those answers and what we do with that information that is passed on, do we turn that information into knowledge? Do we allow that knowledge to sit long enough with us to become wisdom? And therefore we can pass that information back on to someone else. Or do we just decide? And many times we've just decided to decide what we want. And that can cause problems. But when we really, really assess the ability to learn and grow through something that hopefully isn't a lifetime of detriment, then we should be grateful. We should be grateful that there's these lessons that, again, we can put into our lives and say, I know better than to do that again. But I also know better than to ask other people to get down on their hands and knees and pick up these shards of broken pieces. And we, as support systems, should know that, yes, we can maybe pick up some of these things or help to clean up or hand the broom or the dustpan or whatever it is, but they have to go through it. And they chose it, and so therefore they should. It shouldn't mean that we put ourselves into any sort of lacking in our total health of mind, body, and soul. We shouldn't put ourselves in a position of danger, maybe by the people they choose to associate with. We shouldn't go into any sort of financial crisis based off of their spendings. And we certainly should not lose our freedoms based off of somebody else's actions. This all boils down to accountability. And again, we can certainly be supportive, but we do need to allow for ourselves or those around us, depending on which side of the coin you are on, and honestly, either side of the coin, we have to acknowledge that the person that did it is the person that should go through it. Again, we can support, but these lessons are greatest when allowed to really kind of hit us between the eyes and then understand what that means. Now, different stages and ages may bring about different needs for support and assistance. I certainly understand and recognize that. But it doesn't mean that we can't let them still hold the weight. We can spot them, just like in a gym. If somebody's lifting a heavy weight, we can spot them. Just like when children are first learning to walk, we walk alongside them, but there's a point where we stop holding their hands. Training wheels on a bike. Sooner or later, a new bike rider will crash, and that's okay, and we are there to pick them up. But we don't have to fall off of our bikes just as they do. And that's a lesser example. But it still all boils down to learning and growth. So whether it's a new lesson or a hard lesson learned, we still can be supportive, but at some point you can't hold the hand. Those legs have to strengthen on their own. The balance has to be understood on its own. And if we pay for everything, or if we go advocate or go to bat for them for everything, they'll never truly understand. And this is really important with young adults, juveniles, teenagers, adolescents, to understand that you're always growing more toward maturity. You're not going backwards. I tell my 11-year-old all the time, she's closer to 20 than she is to 10 because she's going that direction. And so the lessons should be set ahead, not behind. The past lessons should already be learned and understood. And with consistency and discipline into learning these things at any age and stage, then we understand that. And that allows us to look forward to the next lessons. But we have to allow that people go through it. So when I say do not cut your hands on the shattered lives of others, it doesn't have to mean absolute despair. It just means that if somebody makes a mistake or a misstep or just something happens that they themselves have been the orchestrators of, it's only best that they pick it up. If you spill a cup of water, they should clean it up. There's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't mean they threw the water on the ground on purpose. It just means that it happens. But the lesson is, well, maybe I don't leave it that close to the edge of the table the next time. Maybe I look before I'm just swinging things or just turning. And again, accidents happen. But again, we learn from accidents and things that were intentional. So allow that to be the case.